Right, I'm sure you realize from all the writing that you've done in the past that the same basic principles occur in every type of writing that we do. Audience and purpose. Always need to know who our audience is going to be and what our purpose is for writing. We also need to be aware of the conventional patterns of organization that you learned in freshman comp and see how they affect your writing now. And then make sure you clearly decide which organizational pattern that you're going to use and then follow through. As you're writing, ask yourself four basic questions, especially when you're dealing with other cultures. Does the pattern of text follow your organized pattern? Do your introductions and conclusions present the information you would expect and the what your person from another culture would also expect? Does the text appear to be organized linearly so that they can easily see? And does the text use headings? Always use lots of headings to make it easy for your reader to find where they need to be. And as I think we talked about in another chapter, beware there are things that seem perfectly normal in English, but when they translate to another language may not work as well. For example, the old car, the Nova. It was a fun little car. However, in Spanish it means no go. All right, when you are putting your information together, make sure you're very clear what the pattern is going to be so that once the reader understands its cause and effect that they can look for that sort of information. Make sure you have a detailed table of contents that makes it easy for the reader to follow along. And of course use those headings. As I've mentioned before, not every reader is going to need to read all the same things. So by incorporating headings, you make it easy for the reader to read those sections that apply to them. And of course, make sure you have topic sentences at the beginning of each of your paragraphs. All right, there are your 8 basic patterns of organization. Chronological, spatial, general to specific, more important to less important. Okay, let me see some. Make sure as you're going along that you do look at the various patterns of organization, and I just adjusted that so that you can see all of the types. Just the same as we used in freshman comp. When you are writing, follow these 3 guidelines for organizing chronologically. Signposts. Make sure it's clear that if you are doing it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, that is obvious to the reader. Consider using graphics, which will help you to complement your text, and analyze events where appropriate. Use the following guidelines to organize spatially. To the left, to the right, provide signposts. Again, consider using graphics, some arrows to complement your text. Analyze your events where appropriate. This is an example of information organized spatially, and you can see how each country has been listed and they show us where the country is found. Alright, the following guidelines will help you organize your material from general to specific signposts, and again, consider graphics. Follow these guidelines for providing information from from more important to less. Signposts explain why one point is more important than another, and you might consider graphics to make it easier for your reader to understand. These information or guidelines are used for comparison and contrast. Now, you may find in a lot of your writing you will do comparison or contrast. You don't always have to do both. Evaluate the item based on the criteria. Organize your discussion and consider whether graphics will help. Alright, the following guidelines are used for organizing information by classification or partition, meaning we're talking about the item as a whole or we're talking about individual parts of the item. So decide, use only one basis of classification. It's either by the whole or it's by the individual item. Make sure that the items don't overlap. They need to be clearly delineated. Arrange your categories in a logical sequence, and not just logical to you, but that would be logical to everyone. This is an example of information organized by partition, and you can see here easily where there are the categories that the reader can go to and show you what's in here. Alright, use these guidelines for organizing information by problem, method, solution. In describing your problem, make sure you're very clear, make sure you're very specific. What is the problem? What is the solution? Help your reader to understand what you did and why you did it that way. In describing the solution, don't overstate, just tell the truth of what is actually involved. Use a logical sequence of events, and again, consider those graphics. Follow these guidelines for organizing cause and effect. Again, why did you choose this? How did you decide to get there? Don't overstate, just tell the facts. Look out for logical fallacies. Consider using graphics to complement your text. Alright folks, I hope that gives you some good ideas of how we go about organizing our information. And again, as I said, it's very similar to what we've been doing all along.